so that you have a chance to repeat it later if that's helpful for you. So welcome. This is our Canadian Thanksgiving class, and I thought we would focus today on giving back to ourselves. As I was saying earlier, Thanksgiving is an unusual holiday this year in that maybe you got to have lots of people for dinner and you've been running around like crazy getting everything ready. Or if it's like my house, things were very different and I have a lot of mixed feelings and I'm a little exhausted from trying to work through those. So today's class is about restoring, and we're going to use some traditional restorative yoga and some other techniques to help us kind of pull ourselves back together to face the remainder of the week. So I've asked you to start in a seated position. I'm going to go get seated on my mat. Try to arrange yourself so that your hips are a little bit higher than your knee joints. And this allows your back to find a much more comfortable orientation than if you were straining to sit cross-legged on the floor without that higher hips than knees. So as you can see, I folded my blanket a few times to create some support under my pelvis so that my hip joints are higher than my knee joints. This allows the nice natural waves of the spine. We're just going to start here. We're not going to do very much in the way of standing poses and stretch poses today. We'll leave that maybe for tomorrow morning. Today it's about restoration. So once you've found your comfortable seat, you might be comfortable closing your eyes or just staring down at the floor. And begin to orient yourself internally so you're a little bit more aware of the way your body moves as you breathe naturally. So no need to try to do anything, any deep breathing or anything like that. We're just going to become a little bit more intensively focused on our own internal experience of breath. And in this kind of class, this step is even more important than what it might be in the average class, although it's always very important, because this is about taking care of ourselves this afternoon. It's about restoring ourselves. You give so much to so many other people. And this weekend in Canada, anyway, was a focus on Thanksgiving. So you probably did a lot of hard work, either physically cooking for your family or giving them the space so that they felt safe, if that meant staying home, all of those kind of things. And all of that is exhausting. So we need to take some time back for ourselves. We need to take some caring attention back into ourselves now. So I'm asking you to please focus on your breath and the gentle movements of your body as you breathe. And try to make your breath as quiet as you can. So as little sound as possible as you breathe in and you breathe out. Just focusing here. Noticing if the mind is particularly preoccupied or if you feel very fatigued. Just welcoming and allowing whatever your experience is in this moment, and then gently reorienting your awareness back to the sensations of breathing. And just to help us find a bit of balance, I'd like to do something that sometimes we call mental alternate nostril breathing. So I'll talk you through it. There's really nothing to do. This is something that you feel. So begin to notice, if you can, the air coming in and out of the nostrils in that gentle, quiet way. And without any sense of forcing or bullying yourself, become aware not just of the nostrils, but of the place kind of right where the two nostril streams tend to meet, kind of behind the point in the middle of the forehead, like back in your head. It seems as though you inhale through the right and through the left side, and then the air starts to mingle back there. And for those of you who study yoga philosophy, you know I might be referring to a place of intuition, internal reflection, the third eye chakra or brow center. And so we're going to work with kind of this triangle, the right nostril, left nostril, and that point in the middle of the head, behind the middle of the forehead. Keeping up with this very gentle, soft breathing, can I invite you now to think about your left nostril, please? And imagine on this inhale the air moves up through the left nostril, meets at that point in the middle of your head, and then comes out of the right nostril. And then come in the right nostril and back out the left nostril. So this is just a visualization in your mind or a seeking of sensation as you breathe. So every time you exhale, you think about the other nostril. If you're going to inhale, stay on that same side. And you think about the inhale coming up to that point in the forehead. And if it's very difficult to concentrate this afternoon, smile and say, yep, it's been one of those kind of weekends. And then do the best you can to gently reorient to the task at hand. Really notice how your experience of breathing is starting to subtly change as you focus quite intently on breathing in one nostril and out the other. And I'm always kind of surprised after I really am able to focus on this, how much physical sensation shifts around when I think about opposite nostrils. The next time you imagine exhaling more through the left nostril, let's let that focus dissolve and just go back to the gentlest, quietest breathing that you have available to you right now. And the reason that I offered that particular focus for breathing to start out is because if it has been kind of an exhausting or draining weekend in whatever way, that might help you start to loosen up some energy that's stuck in your body. When we think about breathing in one side of the nostrils, we stimulate the alternate sides of our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system. And it really helps us to start getting ideas flowing again, get our subtle body energy flowing again. And for me, it can help me feel more balanced and centered, which would be helpful if you've had an emotional weekend one way or another. Sometimes holidays are like that. Okay, perfect. I'm going to invite you to gently come now onto hands and knees. And if being on hands and knees is uncomfortable, we'll use our chairs to help. So here's my pile of pillows and blankets we'll get to later. I'm going to demonstrate using the chair to find hands and knees, table pose on the ground if you're comfortable with it. And let's just use this particular pose to find some gentle movement. So we'll start with our inhaling, extending the spine, and then exhaling, rounding out the spine. And this doesn't have to be a really big movement. In fact, let's practice doing this at 50% power compared to what we would normally do this. So not moving our spine into quite the dramatic difference that we would if we weren't doing a restorative class. So it's gentle, just like the breath was really gentle and quiet. This is really soft and gentle as well. Let's take a couple more breaths, letting any organic movement start to come into the spine. Like if you want to move more in one direction or the other, or a little side to side, all of that is fine. This is just a gentle visit with the spine. And then from here, let's move over onto our backs. So I'm going to take one of my blankets and cushion my spine with it. So if anyone has these Mexican cotton blankets at home, I'll just do a brief demonstration of folding it. If you don't have a Mexican cotton blanket, approximate this with your blanket as best as you can. So I folded it once in half so the fringes are all together. And I let the fringes come to the bottom. Then I fold it again So the fringes are still all together, and then I fold it again. So I've got a long rectangle of blanket. And this is a nice way to cushion my spine so that if I'm really trying to restore my nervous system up, or I'm really trying to ground and feel more balanced, even the bones of my spine hitting the hard floor can cause a little bit of distress deep inside. I might be used to it, it might not register for me, but if I have that little bit of cushioning under my spine, it gives an internal message, a subliminal message, if you will, to my nervous system that this is a special time for me, that I want to really be feeling more nurtured than normal. So maybe taking that extra step. If you're working on a carpet, it might not be as helpful, but even then, it might be a nice thing to do for yourself today. Okay, so coming into this sort of position, lying on your back, knees bent, feet on the floor. Try to find that gentle, soft breath again. And also just the gift of time to yourself, taking these little spaces in between the various movements. Again, it's like a subliminal love letter to your nervous system. Hey, girlfriend, I'm so glad you dropped in. Let me listen to you. It's just a lovely message to send. So try not to rush so much. Try not to get so much done. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's come into a few gentle movements here. As you inhale, you're welcome to take the arms back behind your head as far as they'll reach. Exhale, gently hug one knee in towards the chest. Notice I'm taking behind the thigh here. Inhale, stretch back out. And exhale, other leg comes in. Nice and slow, soft breath. And then I'm going to take both knees in, but I'm going to be real nurturing about this. Really explorative. Really nice and soft. Right, let's repeat that pattern 2 more times. And the reason it's nice to move really, really gently with this is, again, it sends that love letter to the nervous system. Hey, girlfriend, we know how hard you've been working this weekend, and we really want to see you have a really nice, soft, restorative practice. So we've got one more round of that. And after you hug both knees in towards the chest, staying in this position, make sure the knees aren't pulled too close, they have some space. And as you inhale the next time, separate the knees a comfortable distance. And as you exhale, push the knees around and away and together so that they come into a big circle. And then timed with your breath, so each circle of the knees takes an entire inhale and exhale. We'll do 3 circles in this direction. And then reversing directions, moving the other way. So I like to inhale when the legs are coming apart, but there's no rule that says that in yoga. Just if you make the circles slow down enough, they last a full breath, we're all on the same page. And just let this gentle circular motion help you unwind the tension of the hips. And then after you've done 3 circles in each direction, the feet can come back to the floor. And we'll take one of those delicious little snack breaks here. Just a little pause. And just dive into the sensations that have been created through these simple movements. Let's take our feet fairly wide apart, maybe even wider apart than your mat, and do a little bit of side to side with the knees. Let's time this with our breath as well. Inhale, knees are center. Exhale, knees begin to point in one direction. And then inhale, come back to center. And exhale, knees begin to point in the other direction. There's no pressure to get the legs all the way to the floor. In fact, maybe it's better that they don't at this point. What we're trying to do here is nourish the hip joints. So we're moving within a range of motion that allows your breath to stay really soft and quiet. And we're trying not to bring the hips into a place of strong sensation or sound if they're clicking or clunking. I'm going to end up doing 3 rotations to each side. And then let's come into our first kind of real stretch. This is a stretch that we can build little by little. So I'm going to take one of my blankets. Sorry, Natalie, I have to disturb you. This is one of my extra blankets. And I'm going to roll it up to create a little kind of pillow. Now, if you have a pillow from your couch, if you don't have a blanket like this, it's going to work just fine. So I'm going to take the knees back over to the first side. I'm going to stick my roll of blanket underneath this thigh. So the top thigh is supported by the roll of blanket. I don't feel now this top leg is hovering in midair. It's supported from underneath. So take some time to get that set up for you. And then let your legs be as relaxed as possible. So the bottom leg is on the bed or on the floor. And the top leg is supported from underneath. So you've got something underneath there. Now you might choose to stay right here. This is an interesting place to be. Or we can deepen the sensations by taking the upper body into a position. It's important that we try to keep the breath really soft and quiet. And if we start getting into too deep of a stretch, we might be pushing this a little bit too fast. So I've got my right leg on the top. So I'm going to take my right arm and I'm going to stretch that arm back behind me. So try that. Now, if you find that it's difficult to have your arm right on the ground, know that you can place a pillow or rolled blanket underneath your arm behind you. So that would be my right arm. So if your shoulder's a little tight, know that you can still come with us into this by propping up this arm and shoulder. And then you may decide that you want to slightly angle your whole body off to, for me, it would be the left. So in the same direction that my knees are pointing, I might want to angle my top body off a little bit towards that side. Make sure that your neck is supported. You may need to have a small roll of towel or something underneath the back of your neck so that you feel supported there. A whole big heavy pillow might not work because it might lift your head too high and put a strain on your spine. The last little cherry on the sundae, so to speak, might be taking the last hand and bringing it up and holding the top arm from underneath. So supporting that top arm, and that will increase the stretch along the open side of the body a little bit. So for me, because my legs were pointing, my knees are pointing towards the left and my right leg is the top leg, I'm going to turn my attention now to the right side of my body. You can even turn your head over to the left as you've angled your body in that direction to open the whole right side of the body. So if you want to bring your awareness down to, say, your knee on the right side, if that's your top side, and trace a line from your outer knee up through your outer thigh to your outer hip, up through the right side of the waist, rib, the armpit, even to the side of your neck and up into the jaw. So that whole side of the body has been opened gently to the breath. Now here's where we might vary breathing just a little bit and allow ourselves to explore now, if you want to, or welcome the chance to explore a deeper inhale. So if it's enjoyable to you, if you're finding it interesting, imagine the top lung, which for me would be the right one. Imagine that lung filling more deeply with the fresh load of oxygen right now as you inhale. Feel the expansive quality of that lung inflating as you welcome life and new breath. As best as you can, relax the belly on the right side so the belly can expand freely with the inhale. When we take deeper breaths, the accessory muscles of breathing feel the effect. And that can happen right up into your jaw. So for me, it'd be right up the right side of my neck into the right side of my jaw. I can actually feel the effects of breathing deeper on the inhales. We might stay here for a couple breaths more. Of course, if my timing doesn't suit your needs, you can be pulling out whenever you're ready. And when it's time to pull out, just keep in mind you reverse out exactly the opposite way as you got into it. So if you're ready to come out, what that means is I would release this arm down. I would angle my neck back to center, my body back to center. I would bring my top arm down and then slowly lift the top leg and then the bottom leg. And here I am back into what we often call constructed rest. You may find you have to recenter your spine in the middle of your mat. And I'm going to stay working with the same side of the body. So my top side of the body was right side of the body. So can I please invite you to stay with the same side? So I'm going to work with the right side. Inhale, you can stretch your arms back if you like. And exhale, gently draw the right knee or whatever leg was on top before in towards your chest. I'm going to stay here for a minute. Go back to your soft, quiet, gentle, natural breath. And then point that knee out to the side and cross the ankle over the opposite thigh. So we've come into a position where your legs are making a triangle shape, sometimes called a figure 4 stretch. Now, I'm not going to ask you to lift your bottom foot up off the floor or grab your legs. In fact, I'd rather we didn't do that today. We're doing a very restorative class today. I want to talk about this knee that's bent out to the side. This might be a very small and subtle movement for you, but can we start to pretend that there is a crayon in that knee, and I'm going to draw circles on the wall over there beside me. So it might not be a very big movement, but I'm going to slowly start to make circles. And if you could time these circles with your breath, like you did the other bigger ones before, that would be cool. And just 3 in one direction, and then 3 in the other direction. So it's like I have a crayon in my kneecap and I'm trying to draw a circle on my door back there. And I'm trying to make each circle count for one whole breath. And then let the movement go. And just notice if this upper leg, the bent leg here, if you go down into the hip joint with your awareness, if you start to notice a bit more space there. So sometimes in yoga, we want to do these big, sexy hip openers. Sometimes it's just a little bit of mobilizing is what we really need. We'll just take one more breath here. And then lift the knee out to the side just a little bit more, point it back in towards your chest, and let's bring that foot onto the floor. Take our little snack break. Now, hopefully your pillow or your folded blanket is right where you need it as we come into the sequence on the other side. So feet are fairly wide apart. We drop our knees to the other way. So my knees are now pointing to the right. Get your blanket or cushion set up so that the top leg is supported. It's not hovering midair. The bottom leg can go right to the ground. There we go. Might take a little fooling around there. So you want both legs supported. One's right on the floor and one we've brought the floor up to meet it. You can stay right here, or we could take the arm opposite to the direction your knees are pointing. So my knees are towards the right. I'm going to take my left arm, angle it up behind me. That's an option to stay right here. Or I can angle my whole torso in the same direction that my knees are pointing. I could also turn my head in the same direction my knees are pointing. And I could also use my opposite arm that hasn't had much to do yet
to support the top arm. There also could be a blanket or pillow under the top arm if this shoulder doesn't like the arm going all the way to the ground. So it's a good idea to bring the earth up to you. Wherever you're at in this, bring the earth toward you. And then once we found our kind of banana shape, we can call this, start to consider that you might welcome a deeper inhale. And if you'd like to bring your focus to the top lung, for me now I'm on the left lung, and just really focusing on how much inflation you can comfortably bring from the inside of your body, from the lung, focusing on that inhale. And then see if you can really relax your low belly on the top side as well. Let the belly move as much as possible as you breathe. And then remember, as you want to leave the posture, and you don't have to leave now, but as you leave the posture, you reverse out in the same order as you added elements, until we all join each other back in the center of the mat again, in constructed rest. And then we'll work into the figure 4 stretch, so to speak, but it's not really a figure 4 stretch. We'll take one leg, inhale, and then exhale, take the other leg in towards your chest. So whatever leg was on top in that last stretch. We're not pulling on the leg, we're just feeling the heaviness of that femur bone or that thigh bone sink towards your body. So still going soft and gentle. And then turning the knee out to the side, putting the ankle across the other thigh. We've come into an open triangle shape in between the legs. Now it might be a little silly, but I'm all for a bit of silly. Let's put that crayon in this knee. And now you're going to draw on the other wall, making little circles with the knee. And it might not be a very big movement. Like I said, if you're able to slow down enough that as a whole breath cycle with each circle, that would be awesome. Once you've done 3 in one direction, you can change directions. This is a subtle movement. Nothing too spectacular. There we go. And then if you just come to stillness after you've done 3 knee circles in both directions, you may notice there is a sense of space here that you didn't have before you did your crayon in the knee trick. Isn't that nice to feel space in the hip joint? Okay. And then when you're ready, we'll release that and carefully roll over to your side. For my friends who are really not sure about being on your belly, you can watch and see the setup for this. And then if you think, no, that's really not going to work for me, come back into constructed rest and follow along with the breathing cues. And then we'll join you in the next posture. But for my friends who want to try something like this, you've still got this blanket cushioning the full length of your body to the floor.
I'm going to take the other blanket that I was using, or the pillow would be fine, something about that thick. So what would that be, about 2 inches, 3 inches? And I put this here, and I intend to have that underneath my pelvis, underneath the fronts of my hips. Then I would like something else, a pillow from your couch. I'm going to use a roll of blanket, but a pillow for your couch is fine. This is going to roll up and go underneath the fronts of your ankles. So I'll demonstrate how this is all going to look, but something about that high. So it could be a pillow, a rolled blanket, or something that's going to go under the fronts of the ankles. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to have the ankles over top of the roll of blanket, and that can be a higher prop if we figure we need it. The front of the pelvis over this folded blanket here, and I'll have to move my chair for a second, and then my forehead supported by my hands. Do the best you can to keep your legs in 2 parallel lines. Use your hands or another folded towel or something so that you can breathe freely here, like you're on a massage table. And then make sure that the blanket is underneath your fronts of your hips so your belly has a free ability to move underneath you. So for my friends for whom this posture is not accessible, just come back over onto your back, knees bent, feet on the floor, constructed rest. And as I said, just follow along with the breathing cues at this point. I really need to remember to feed Natalie before we do our 5 p.m. classes. She gets very restless. Okay, so we're settled into the belly down posture, or if you've elected to be in the supine posture, that's fine. If you're lying on your back, you may find it makes more sense right now to take your hands to your belly so you have a bit more physical connection with the movements of breath. If you're laying on your belly, then you're going to have the ground give you these kind of physical sensations. Now, can we move into a slightly more active breathing rate now? Like you were doing in that last sequence, thinking about one lung at a time, can we think about both of the lungs now? And on the inhale, really inflating the lungs. And can we draw the awareness to the back of the lungs? So if you're on your belly, you might find it more obvious to you, the shape change that occurs in your back body as you breathe in. If you're lying on your back, you can just maybe use your awareness of around the shoulder blades and that to feel the back of your body moving into the ground. And we'll take a few more deep inhales, trying to fill your lungs to their maximum capacity at this time. And if you feel that being on your belly is just not working for you, you just gently remove the blankets from under your pelvis, roll over onto your back, and take the constructed rest. But sometimes being on the belly can be a very cocooning-like posture. It can really help us remember feeling more connected to earth, feeling more safe and grounded. Some people sleep this way. My teacher, Jillian, that Linda and I studied with last November, she calls this surfboard pose, to be on the belly. And now please dissolve all efforting with your breath and simply go back to what we did at the beginning, which is just kind of like a gentle, quiet observation of the breath. So absolutely no effort or control with the breath at all. Just letting the breath flow in the intelligent way your body knows it needs to. Just letting it just go. Just take a couple more breaths here. And for my friends that are on their backs, could you please roll over to your side and press up from the floor? And for my friends that are on their bellies, bring your hands close in towards the sides of your ribs and gently press up into all fours and just come to any kind of comfortable seat temporarily while we get set up for our next posture. How are we doing? Okay. So we're working towards restoring our nervous system after what maybe has been a very busy or emotional weekend. So I have the basic blanket that I set down at the very beginning, and then I have this blanket or pillow. It's about 2 or 3 inches thick, and I'm going to have that under the sides of my ribs. The next posture is a side lying posture. So I have a little bit of cushion here. I have some cushion underneath my ribs, and I'd like something that matches that pretty much to go underneath my head. So let me take this blanket here and fold it up so it pretty much matches that one. And this will be underneath the side of my head. This little hollow here will be for my shoulder. And then I need one more thing. You can use a blanket or you can use a pillow. This old pillow will do just fine, fold it in half, and I'm going to put this between my legs. So I know we're getting a lot of props going here, but we're worth it, right? we're worth this little extra effort. So I'm going to lie on my side with my hip supported by that basic blanket. So my side hip bone, the greater trochanter, isn't poking into anything hard. As I lay down, this first blanket that was under my belly or under my pelvis before supports my bottom ribs. This pillow substitute, or maybe you actually have a pillow, is basically at the same level as the rib support, and this allows my shoulder to fit right in between. Then I take my other pillow, blanket, whatever we got going on, and I support between my knee and my ankle. So my legs are parallel with each other. So it's a side lying position, but I've taken quite a bit of care to try to lift the middle part of my spine. So I'm actually doing sort of a side lying half moon pose, but because of the support here, there's no strain on my neck. Because of the support between my legs, there's no strain on my hips. I just have a nice little shift of the rib cage. So you can stay right here. This is might be the most comfortable place for you. I needed to shift, make a little room for my hip bone down there. Or if you want to take this a little bit more into a side bend, you could take the top arm and lift it up over the head. Again, this arm could be on a chair or on a block or on another stack of pillows so that you don't have too much strain unless it's comfortable for you to have the arm draped right over the head. In these restorative postures, we're not looking to create strong sensation. We're really looking to coddle the body, swaddle the body in a way that kind of brings us back to those nurturing memories of maybe early life, if that existed for you, but to help us remember what it's like to be swaddled and coddled and to feel that sense of grounding and safety again. So we don't want to pull ourselves into extreme stretches. Even though that might be available to you and you might feel like you really want to do that because that's your habit, it really won't serve us in terms of restoring the nervous system at this time. So briefly, you may want to visit that deeper inhale again, and it makes sense to think about the top lung here. We'll just take a few more breaths here.
And then remember, we come out of postures when we're doing restorative yoga, unwinding the elements one by one. So slowly dropping the top arm if you were using that above the head, and then pushing up from the floor, gently letting the head hang heavy. And then I hope these props are all in position for you. All you really need to do is very carefully rotate around over to the other side. And find your sideline position on the other side. So you may find that you need to shift the blanket underneath your ribs a little tiny bit. Make sure that the pillow between your legs supports both your knee joints and your ankle joints. So your lower legs are in two parallel lines. And that the pillow under your ribs and the pillow under your head, or blankets, whatever you're using, are basically the same height. And there's that option to extend the top arm, but if that feels like any kind of strain on your shoulder, then please don't do it. Find it on this side so that we can do this together. It's okay to make a few extra little shifts to make sure that you have your props in exactly the right place. And then once you're settled into the sideline position on this side, think about the top lung. It'll be the other lung now. And breathe deeply into that top lung. So just really gloriously celebrating that inhale. And I'm hoping if you felt a little drained before beginning this class, I'm hoping that some of these techniques are helping you to discover that you can get a lot more miles in, my energizing bunnies, before the end of the day. We just needed to have a little kindness and a little tenderness in our lives. I'll just take a few more breaths here. And then remember, we unwind the posture with the most recent element first. So top arm comes down, head's heavy as we gently press up. And I can't believe how quickly time goes when we're working in this way. I'm going to leave that basic blanket on my mat or wherever you end up practicing this last pose. And then if you have a chair like I do, let's put that into position at the end of the mat. You may be throwing your legs up the couch or an ottoman if you don't have a chair. And if you're working in bed, which is delicious and wonderful, you can just get a stack of pillows or blankets to go underneath your lower legs. It kind of elevates up about that far. Now here's something that I love to do, and I hope you'll be able to do this for yourself at home. So remember I showed you how to fold a blanket quite lengthwise. If you don't have a blanket, but you have a beach towel or something that you can get a hold of, it will work just the same. So I'm going to take one of those long rectangular folds and put it over the seat of my chair or couch or whatever you've got going on. I also have an old pillow. So you don't need a lot of fancy equipment to do restorative yoga. You can use things that have been kicking around your house for decades. This old pillow, I'm just going to put it right here, and this is going to give me a tiny bit more cushioning under my sacrum. Remember I said about if you feel your bones poking into the floor, it's going to subliminally trigger your nervous system that something's not right and you won't be able to get the full benefit. So I find for me, although I have lots of padding in a lot of places, just at the low back there, I need a little cushioning. So just something low. You don't want anything that's going to throw the alignment of your back off too much. You might also want a pillow underneath your neck. I find this whole thing is just about perfect to support the curve of my neck. Actually, the other way works better. So I've played with this a lot, as you can see, and I've got my favorite little props. So we're going to take legs up the chair or whatever we got going on. So I'm going to sit up on whatever I've got for underneath my hips, underneath my sacrum, and swing my legs up over the chair as so. Now, before I come down onto my back, I'm going to take the blanket and really cocoon my legs. Tuck it in as best as I can. Now, if you're in a cool space, you might want another blanket over your legs. I find this is good enough for me in the situation I'm in these days. So my sacrum is supported. I'm just making those little Goldilocks adjustments with my props. My neck is supported. And maybe I need another blanket over my arms or my chest. Another kindness I love is I will take a blanket and I'll put it over my belly, little weight on my belly. So again, you could be using a pillow from the couch or beach towels. Now the blanket that we've used to wrap our lower legs, you'll find that when you get settled into this, your legs have a tendency to pull apart quite naturally. The blanket's there to provide parameters, boundaries, and your legs may feel as though they're more aligned. This again communicates deep into the brain. It likes symmetry. It feels safer with symmetry. And you might notice a real release in your hip joints and in your low back joints. Make sure you're warm enough. Hands can be positioned in the traditional Shavasana shape. I kind of like to tuck them into the blanket here somewhere. There we go, kind of like a muff. And close your eyes. If you use an eye pillow, brilliant. You can have that going on to help cut the light in the room. And this will be the last bit of kind of settling into a place for the rest of the class. So it's worthwhile kind of playing around and finding just the right orientation for you. Maybe some of the places I've suggested, pillows or blankets, don't work that well for you. But ask yourself, is there a way that I could be, 5% or 10% more comfortable here? And then once you've managed to get yourself oriented, and if you find that this position is not accessible or it just doesn't feel comfortable for whatever reason today, and I've been doing this a long time and I've seen lots of people that it's not that comfortable for, maybe just go to your more familiar Shavasana shape or what you know will be more restful for you. And let's go back to that soft, gentle, natural breath. And we were paying quite a bit of attention to the nostrils today and the lungs today. Let's pay attention to the belly now. And if you have something riding the swells and dips of your breath, like a blanket or a pillow on your belly, it can help to really ground you into awareness of the natural shape change as you breathe in and you breathe out. Notice how the shape of your breath has changed in the time we've spent together. And if you are in a position that elevates your legs like this, notice how the exhale in particular has changed. You may notice your breath has become more shallow in this position. That there's a lot more air moving through the nostrils on the exhales than there was before in some of the other positions. And you might also notice a natural desire to just be present and peaceful after the exhale. That there's a bigger space that comes quite naturally without reaching or grabbing for the inhale and the next breath. And if that happens for me, I see that as a willingness to be still, to be present, a willingness to allow peacefulness. And on the occasion of Thanksgiving, isn't that really a lovely thing to do? Is to really pay attention, to really be present, and welcome the gifts of this breath. Before rushing to open up the next present, to just really be here in this peaceful, quiet place after the exhale. Aware and alert, but calm and receptive. Your choice to invest in restorative yoga class this afternoon, it really indicates, I think, to the universe that you are willing to appreciate the gifts today, this moment of this breath. And as you embrace your gratefulness, embrace the beauty of the peace of this moment, you may notice a number of physical effects. You may notice your jaw relaxing and the little muscles around your eyes letting go. All of those efforting lines across the forehead where we plan and fret and worry, maybe they're melting away. Maybe you feel the heaviness of your bones as gravity calls them to glide down through layers of muscle and tissue. And mostly you might feel the softening of your good friend, the brain. Just a general willingness to be awake and alert and aware, but calm and receptive. Just taking a few more moments here. nurturing our physical bodies, our mental bodies, and especially your beautiful giving heart. If you're able to spend a little bit more time with yourself in this position, then of course, take some more time. But if it's time for you to move on to the next step of your day, we can gently reverse out of this in the opposite order of the way we came in. So take the blanket off the belly, kick the blanket off your legs, draw your legs gently in towards your chest, and roll to one side. You can rest on your side for a second or two. No need to rush. And then we can come back up to the comfortable seat that we used at the beginning of class. So that might be sitting on a chair for you. I'd like to share just before we leave each other this afternoon, something that I do in my daily practice. And it's a nice way, I find, to move energy. We've been working a lot with building our energy back up after giving so much over this weekend. So if you know the Gayatri mantra, you might find this kind of fun to sing along or participate with. You can just sit and close your eyes, or lay and close your eyes and let these sacred syllables wash over you. This is a very, very old collection of Sanskrit syllables that is said to be very healing. Or you can join in with a few hand motions to kind of work your own energy body. So many of us would be familiar with the chakras. I'm going to start the Gayatri mantra. I'm going to do the long form. And each one of these first few words corresponds to one of the spinal chakras. So I like to take my left hand under my right hand and place the two hands on top of each other. And if you don't have an arm that wants to move or something, just use your imagination. And your imagination is so powerful. Remember that breathing we did at the beginning? That was all imagination, and it could have deep physical effects. So I think about each one of the chakras as I go through this: the root, the low belly, the upper belly, the heart, the throat, the third eye. We're breathing into the third eye before, and the crown. And then I come down like this with my hand. So that's the gestures. And if you want to watch the video and sing with me or do the gestures with me, just so you know, I'm going to position the hands as we just did and say the sacred syllables that are thought to be able to call that energy up or make it more active in our body. So let's do this together maybe 3 times. And then we'll finish with oming to each other. And then maybe after we can say what this felt like, if you felt anything. So we can start like this. Here we go. Om Bhur, Om Bhuvaha, Om Swaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam, Om Tatsavitur Varaniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimihi Dio Yona Prachodayat. Om Bhur, Om Bhuvaha, Om Swaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam, Om Tatsavitur Varaniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimihi Dio Yona Prachodayat. Om Bhur, Om Bhuvaha, Om Swaha, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam, Om Tatsavitur Varaniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimihi Dio Yona Prachodayat. And then let's finish with Om. Namaste. So I'd love to chat about how you felt your restorative class came together, but just let me stop the recording.